This is it, ladies and gentlemen. Get ready for another honest review of a recently released wargaming event for our favorite game, World of Tanks. We are of course referring to the Waffenträger Legacy event, which took place between September 26th and October 10th. An event somewhat expected by many players, including us, to have the opportunity to analyze and test what this new iteration will bring us. And thankfully, it looks like we'll have something new to look at here, as there are multiple tweaks to the gameplay and core mechanics. Some good, some not so good. As usual, I suppose. We are still talking about a game mode made by Wargaming, after all, you know. But let's take things from the beginning and not rush to draw unfounded conclusions. This is not how we do things here, as we have already accustomed you to. First of all, we would like to clarify one aspect from the start. This time we will take a different approach to how we will analyze this new iteration of the event. You see, the most important change is that all of our analysis this year will be based entirely on the free-to-play method. This means that, unlike last year when we opened tons of engineers' gates to see what drops we would get and how fair the gambling system is with us, we will now focus our full attention on the free-to-play aspect of the event. We decided on this change because we already know how the drop system works. And it's not good. It's never been good. It wasn't last year, and it wasn't this year either, as you'll see a little later. That would be the first reason. The second reason is that this game and the events that Wargaming puts out for it should normally also be fun for players who choose not to invest money or simply can't afford to invest money on a pair of pixels. After all, that's what the game is supposed to be about. Fun and engaging for all players, whether they have money in their pockets or not. That being said, these are the changes we will be making this year to how we conduct our honest review. At least for this event. We'll see if we apply this to other events or game modes down the road. So, the rules this time are that we will not invest a single cent in this event. Nothing. All the engineer gates we will open come from starters received as a reward. As much as we could gather without investing a huge amount of time into this. And this is kind of the second change that we haven't told you about yet, and we probably forgot about it too. Sorry about that, you tend to forget things when you get old. So, we will try to invest a reasonable amount of hours into this event, as much as we think is normal for someone who has other duties and responsibilities than this game or its events. Other than that, we believe that when a game demands more from you than you can give, and you end up sacrificing important things in your life for a couple of pixels on the screen, something is definitely not right. Some people have a job, a family, or other things to deal with in their lives. But they also want to have that moment of theirs when they burn time on things like this, and that time is often limited. Back to the topic though, we will look into whether it is possible for us to complete all the missions and receive all the free rewards within this reasonable time frame. Open some gates and last but not least, have some fun. As long as that grinding feeling doesn't start to set in. And with that, now we can go back to our honest review and go through it, step by step, change by change, so to speak. Just the way we like to do things here, as usual. With the probability of repeating myself, this event took place between September 26th and October 10th. During this time players had the opportunity to team up against the engineer or vice versa. The battle rules are more or less similar to last year, with a number of changes though. We'll go through them quickly as we have a few important changes to highlight. For better or for worse. The basic rule of the event is kept, which is that to win the game with the Alliance forces or the engineer it is necessary to destroy the engineer's tank within a certain time or to survive long enough when playing the engineer. Nothing new here. Of course, to be able to enter the battle with the engineer it is necessary to have at least one key. These keys can be earned by participating in the event or by purchasing various packs in the premium store. More on this later. The event has 3 progression stages that offer various rewards to players. To complete these 3 stages it is necessary to accumulate a number of tokens, which can be earned by completing various special missions. Some are more difficult, some easier. It really depends on the team you play on when you go in with the Harriers. Just like last year, we have a series of gates that we can open for various rewards. 1 gate for the engineer and 1 for the Harriers. The engineer's gate can only be opened with special starters, which can be earned during the event for free or purchased from the premium store. We'll come back to this later because there are some interesting things to talk about here. We also have some new tier 9 and 8 premium tanks that we can earn by opening the engineer gate. More specifically, a new tier 9 heavy tank of British production, the FV4201 Chieftain Proto. And the new KV4 KTTS tank destroyer, which is tier 8. In addition to these 2 new tanks, there are a number of other tanks up for grabs, including the Astron Rex, which was last year's main reward. On a personal note, the 2 new tanks don't seem special to me in any way. I found Astron Rex much more interesting, but that's just my opinion. For last, we saved perhaps the most important thing to discuss here. This year we had the opportunity to see back on the battlefield one of the most controversial tanks that ever existed in the game and was later removed. The legendary Waffenträger. A tier 10 tank destroyer equipped with a self-loading system that quite rightly wreaked havoc on the battlefield in its days. Newer players may not have had the opportunity to meet this formidable fighting machine, but veterans of the game certainly remember it. And to be honest with you, in the current game mechanics this tank deserves to be reintroduced. It's not like we don't already have other tanks that are similar in gameplay. And I am referring here to certain premium tanks. Who knows, maybe at some point we'll see this tank back in the game in one form or another, premium or not. Although I wouldn't want to give Wargaming too many ideas about it. But let's go back to what I was saying earlier. The tank was only given for a short time and for a limited number of games. You could earn it for free by participating in the event or opening the engineer gates. From our point of view, basically, Wargaming found a new way to monetize this game. You get tanks that have been removed from the game by paying money. In addition, the tank does not even stay in your garage but is rented for a period of time and a certain number of battles. So it looks like we've already found an issue here that goes against our policy when it comes to our reviews. More precisely, the fact that we do not tolerate in any way such monetization strategies, even more so those that leave you with an empty wallet and in the end what you bought or earned is taken from you. This unfortunately leads us from the very start of our honest review to the reduction of 1 point from the final verdict of the event. It's not like we wanna do this, but it's your own fault here. Maybe next time you will think twice before implementing something new in the game. Or maybe not. That's not to mention that when the Waffenträger was taken out of the game and replaced with Grill 15 you didn't compensate players who already had it in their garage in any form. But that's a discussion for another time perhaps. Next on the list, we have a small change to the Alliance forces. This time the Harriers team consists of only 6 tanks, 1 less than last year. As far as we can tell, this change was made because the respawn limit was removed, making it possible to respawn as many times as you want. Or die as many times as you want, I suppose. But with each respawn you do, however, the time to re-enter the fight increases. So to some extent, this rebalancing seems unnecessary to us. We don't think there was a need to decrease the number of Alliance tanks by making it possible to respawn endlessly. Because anyway, after dying 3 or 4 times the time increases so much that it will probably be pointless to enter the fight anymore. Or even the fight is over by then. We'll discuss this more a bit later in any case. As for the tanks of the Alliance, they remained the same as we are already used to. Including their skills are the same as last year. We have 3 tanks to choose from, each with its own advantages and disadvantages. Basically, the 3 tanks fit perfectly into the heavy, medium and light categories. Like last year, all tanks share a number of common abilities, with the only addition being unlimited respawn. We wouldn't really call it an ability, to be honest, but that is how they consider it to be. And again, just like last year, the individual abilities are virtually identical. We have railgun, siege mode, and ballistic dome. And that's about it. Nothing particularly new here, I guess. Now seriously, was it that hard for them to make some changes here? I'm not complaining or anything, don't get me wrong. At least not at the moment. But we believe that improvements could be made in this regard. Maybe they'll think about it next year because it's already starting to get a little boring. There's a limited number of times you can recycle the same stuff over and over again before it becomes uninteresting, if you know what I mean. But let's get over it and move on. Here we have, in theory, a little guide on how to win when playing with the Alliance forces. It should be easy according to the guide. In practice, things are completely different. That's because while what is presented to us in the guide is useful to some extent, there are a lot of variables that can happen on the battlefield. And we'll come back to these variables along the way. The point is that overall nothing has changed in the core mechanics of the event. And the most important aspect to keep in mind is that team play means everything. To win with the Alliance forces you must first destroy the Sentinels so you can get the plasma from them. Carry the plasma to the generators to disable them. And then focus your firepower on the engineer's tank. Hoping you survive this process. Which will not happen. That's why you have unlimited respawn, I guess. The thing is, this rarely works as it should and was designed to work. But as I said, we will come back to this. And we finally got to the engineer's tank. Here the situation is similar, if not identical to last year. I say similar because there are a few tweaks here though. The abilities available to us are the same, nothing new to talk about really. We got the Gungnir, EMP arrow, EMP burst and teleportation. It should also be mentioned absorption, which regenerates a percentage of your hit points and also accelerates the recharge of the teleportation ability. But from what we observed, however, is that the engineer's tank seems to be slower compared to the last event and the accuracy of the cannon somewhat weaker. Changes were made probably due to the number of Harriers being reduced to 6. But we can only speculate on this subject. In any case, we haven't noticed any major differences in playstyle with this tank, even with these small adjustments. Just like last year, Wargaming employees and a limited number of special guests will be able to play in the E220 variant of the tank. If you get into a battle against this tank variant and win, you'll supposedly receive various additional rewards. Exceptionally valuable rewards, as they say themselves. We can't say for sure what those exceptionally valuable rewards are as we didn't encounter this tank even once during the event. So from our point of view, this aspect will be completely ignored throughout this review. And last but not least, another change made by Wargaming is that old Max von Krieger has been retired and replaced by his daughter, Ermelinda. Old Max probably got killed by his own machines and inventions while trying to improve the designs for the E220, I suppose. In any case, Ermelinda has taken the helm throughout this event, and to be honest, it's a welcome change. The next one is another little guide, this time for the engineer. This one is thankfully a little more useful than the first for the Harriers, because it's all up to you as the player to win or lose the game. You are no longer dependent on other players who could do more harm than good. You are free to decide how you want to play to get the win. And here things are more flexible in terms of gameplay. At least if you lose it's usually your fault, so you can't blame other players. Otherwise, the tactic is simple here anyway. The idea is to defend your sentinels as much as possible, not allow the Alliance forces to deliver plasma to the generators, and survive until the end of the round. Even if you have to hide in a corner of the map. Seriously. We have seen this tactic successfully applied multiple times throughout the event. So why not if it works? Here, however, we will have some observations to make a little later. Because, you see, there were some balancing issues that we found throughout the games we played. Some quite major ones offering a clear advantage to the engineer. But what about the maps, you might wonder? The maps that could be played on during the event? Well, of course, we have some maps too. 3 maps to be exact. Murovanka, Siegfried Line, and Steps. Not necessarily the best selection you might say, but I guess it's okay. All have undergone a number of specific changes for this event and each of them has its advantages and disadvantages. For both sides. Some favor the engineer, others the Alliance forces. And on this topic, we will, unfortunately, have more to discuss, because here too we have identified significant advantages for the engineer, on some maps. I can't help but notice a pattern here. Quite a lot of advantages for the engineer, wouldn't you say? But maybe it's just me and my formidable imagination. In any case, we still have a few things to analyze about what this event wants to be, what it offers, and what has changed or improved from last year. Because honestly, for now, we haven't noticed too many exciting changes or improvements on this. Just more of the same. But let us continue and maybe we'll find some. As we said earlier, the event has a progression system implemented, through which different rewards could be obtained. Such as for example emblems, decals, inscriptions and camouflages. Bonds, premium days and starters can also be earned. For both the Engineer's Gate and the Harriers. But the most important rewards in our opinion are the 2 new female crew members. Villanelle Rapier commanding the Alliance forces and none other than Ermelinda Jung, daughter of Max von Krieger. Progression is divided into 20 stages, and each stage requires 20 tokens to advance to the next. The first crew member can be earned at stage 10 and the second at stage 17. In total to complete all stages, you will need 400 tokens. At the end of progressing through the stages as a reward, you will also get the opportunity to play 5 games in the legendary Waffenträger. And that's it. Nothing more or less. We should mention though that progressing through stages and earning tokens is somewhat easy and doesn't necessarily require spending too much time completing it, or investing gold to do it magically for you. But please note that it all depends on the team and how lucky you are in getting a good one. Which happens quite rarely. As for the starters for the Engineer and Harrier gates, each of them can be earned or bought from the premium store in different packages. Harrier starters can only be earned as a reward by completing different stages, and as you progress through the stages you will also receive some Engineer Gate starters. Starters for the Engineer Gate can also be earned through various special missions playing against the Alliance and of course by buying packs from the premium store. Note that you won't get many of these starters just by playing and doing missions. We wouldn't want Wargaming to go bankrupt by pouring tons of free starters on us, would we? You'll get a few just to motivate you to buy the packs in the store. Why do we say this? Because you will notice that the drops from the Engineer's Gate are catastrophic. Sorry, but I don't have a better word for it at the moment. More on this catastrophe later on. And finally, we have reached the point where we find out what lies behind the Engineer's Gate. First of all, premium tanks of course. 2 new tanks and the rest a bit older. But perhaps the most interesting of them is Astra and Rex, to be honest with you. The 2 new tanks, FV4201 Chieftain Proto and KV4KTTS don't seem that interesting to us because they don't have anything special. And here I don't mean that it has to be overpowered to be an interesting tank. I mean they are just two new somewhat normal tanks for two nations that already had enough premium tanks. They could have been, for example, two new tanks for Japan and the Czech Republic, or Poland and Italy. All of these nations suffer from a lack of premium tanks after all. In any case, at least it's good that both tanks are not overpowered, which is always welcome. Some of the other premium tanks that can drop are Chieftain T95, Emil 1951, M54 Renegade, Skoda T27 and Alt Proto AMX30. Just to name some of them. In addition to premium tanks, we also have personal reserves, premium days, consumables, credits and a new 2D style. We also have three 3D styles for Object 140, the Batshata Yom 25T and M48A5 pattern. Basically the 3D styles for the three Alliance tanks. In addition, 10 Waffenträger rentals can also drop from the engineer gate, with a maximum of 5 times per account. Going further down, we have a reroll system included for the two gates. Yes, the same reroll system we are used to and which we have seen previously on other occasions, more or less. It's back here too unfortunately, and it looks like this will stick with us for quite some time to come. Because Wargaming wouldn't want to miss this opportunity to squeeze even more money out of the event. You already know that we do not approve of such systems, especially when you have already invested perhaps a sum of money to buy different packages available during the event. But what makes this system even more special this time, you might ask? Well, to be frank, I don't even know where should I start. Because this is such a big mess right now that it makes me dizzy just thinking about it. But let's try to explain how it works and see beyond the smokescreen that actually hides the mechanics of this system. For the engineer's gate, you can reroll 5 times, each reroll costing an amount of gold. But, the 4th and 5th rerolls will cost you more gold. For the Harrier's gate, you can reroll 3 times using silver and each attempt will cost you more. Much more, even obscenely expensive we could say. Compared to what you can earn from the Harrier's gate, this system is not compensatory at all, and you will see this along the way. In any case, this reroll system is not new and has been experienced by Wargaming before, in all cases with negative results for the player. That's because for once you invest money to buy packages from the premium store, and then if you're not lucky enough to get something cool back, you're tempted to reroll. Reroll, and reroll, and reroll some more. All the rerolls coming out of your pocket. This is similar to Harrier's gate, as each reroll costs you silver. That silver did not fall from the sky or magically appeared in your account. It was earned by playing the game, converting from gold to silver, or buying packs containing silver. So, you burn yourself multiple times in the end, losing important resources that could be used in a better way or being left with an empty wallet. It's a miserable tactic Wargaming has been practicing for many years now, but it's getting more and more aggressive every year. The only thing left to do in this case is just to deduct 1 more point from our final review score. Perfectly normal and fair in our opinion. And look how 2 points have already gone down the drain. It's that simple to lose them. Just like our gold, silver, and money. Please note that we will not be putting the pay to gamble tag on this one just yet. But who knows, maybe later. We still have time to do it. It's also worth mentioning that the guaranteed reward system, as they call it, is also present. A system that guarantees that if you haven't received a premium tank in 49 activated engineer gates, the next gate will eventually give you one. We've reviewed this system before with mixed results. In some cases, we received a premium tank earlier, and in others later. Somehow this system has its roots in the reroll mechanics, and it's no coincidence that it exists in parallel. All these systems are closely related to each other and are designed to work in a certain way. Usually to the player's disadvantage. But nothing new here, I suppose. This is wargaming after all. So nothing surprises us anymore. And the last thing to analyze here is perhaps the least important. But who knows, maybe, on the contrary, it could be the most important one, depending on what passions and hobbies you have, I guess. We are talking about medals, of course, because it is impossible not to have some medals for this event. Over the years we have come to the conclusion that the medals in this game are kind of like Pokemons. Gotta catch 'em all in order to complete your invaluable collection of Pokemedals. It's just that some are a bit impossible to catch. And this time we have 3 medals here to catch. More precisely, Semiconductor, Too Old to Die Young, and the rarest of them all, Free Electron. The last one can only be obtained by winning a battle against the E-220, and since this tank is almost non-existent on the battlefield, you can be sure that very few players have it. Maybe only Wargaming employees and special guests, because only they had access to the E-220. Not a big loss, I suppose, but it would have been nice to be able to add this one to our collection. Not that I particularly collect such things, just so you know. Maybe just a bit. But it's not a habit, I promise. It's just that they look cool on my in-game profile page and give some special abilities for those who own them. Like the bragging rights ability. You can never have too much of that. But I have to apologize. I got a little carried away with these damn medals. So, where were we? Aha! How could I forget? Of course. We have completed our preliminary analysis of the event, the changes and improvements to it, and what makes it more special than last year's version. And we'll be honest with you on this one, not much. But let us proceed to the next phase of our analysis, where we will discuss in more detail certain aspects mentioned earlier. In this phase, there is a good possibility of losing some more points along the way. Or on the contrary, maybe gaining some. It all depends on what we dig up and discover here. Just to refresh your memory, we remind you that up to this point we have already deducted 2 points. And that happened in the preliminary stage, which makes us seriously wonder how many more points we will lose during the next section. But let's not waste any more time and get down to business. So make yourselves comfortable, if you haven't already done so by now. Grab a cup of coffee, tea or whatever else you have at your disposal, because this is where the fun part begins. So, we'll start with what we said at the beginning of our honest review. Because it's one of the most comically failed attempts by Wargaming to sell us a pair of pixels on the screen that we've ever come across. Seriously. I'm not joking in any way here. We are of course referring to the packages that could be purchased with money from the premium store and were available throughout the event. These packages, more precisely and unfortunately. At first glance, everything seems fine, you would say. We have some packs to buy with money containing various things, in this case, the starters needed for the engineer's gate. Perfectly normal after all. We are already familiar with such packages, I suppose. Want to open the engineer's gate multiple times and have money in the bank? Perfect. You go to buy starters and take a look at the available packages. You will notice that there are a variety of options to choose from, starting from the cheapest to the most expensive. The cheapest pack we have is the taster package. And we find it kind of funny how they named this one, to be honest. A taster is someone whose job is to taste different wines, teas, or other foods or drinks, in order to test their quality. Normally, at least. We wonder if this is just a typo, or a sign of what Wargaming has in store for us in the near future. But who knows, maybe at some point they plan to launch teas, wines, burgers, cakes and such. It's not like they don't already have a range of products on sale. And I'd really appreciate a Wargaming branded tea. Returning to the packs, however, we also have a small, medium, and of course, a large pack. A very large one. Now, browsing each pack available, we can see that each contains a number of starters, decals, and keys. What draws our attention here, however, is the enormous amount of decals we get from each pack, especially in the medium and large ones. What in God's name are we going to do with 60 decals? Seriously. It's absurd. We only need, and want to buy the damn starters for the gate. Are these decals some kind of bonus when buying the packs containing starters? No. You might think that's the case, if you don't read the description of each package more closely. In fact, absolutely all packages contain only decals. And as a bonus, you get Engineer's Gate starters and keys. Basically, you buy decals and thanks to the kindness of Wargaming, you also get starters and keys. As a bonus. This fact is better highlighted in the premium web store, than in the game. So let's go a bit there and check. Here, with each package, it is clearly stated that by purchasing the respective bundle you receive, as a bonus, starters and keys. Why this change in how they sell such things, you may be thinking. The answer is simple, more or less. It depends on how deep you want to dig to really find out the strategy that is being applied here. You see, in order for Wargaming to be able to sell these packs in different regions or countries where there are certain restrictions on gambling in video games, they have changed their tactics a bit. Now they sell you different in-game goods like decals, and as a kind of bonus, you get what you were actually interested in from the start. In this case, the starters for the Engineer's Gate. Thus, they no longer have a legal problem and can sell their packages in almost any country. For them as a company, it is the right and smart move to do here. And for the buyer, things are more or less the same. We would have nothing against this new tactic of selling different things for the game. But the truth is that in the end what you're actually buying from these packs are starters for the gate. Starters to open the gate as often as your pocket allows. Hoping something cool will eventually drop for you. Nothing more, nothing less. And when the gate drops you nothing but junk, you'll go back and buy more packs that include starters as a bonus. And you will do this once, twice, 3 times, and so on. In the end, you end up with hundreds of useless decals and maybe something cool in your garage. From our point of view, this is nothing but a deceiving tactic applied by Wargaming so they can bypass some limitations selling the starters for the gate. You are still actually buying starters, make no mistake. And then you'll use those starters to open the Engineer's Gate. It cannot be opened with decals, keys or other things from the packs. This will, unfortunately, result in an additional point being deducted from the final verdict of the event. We don't like being taken for fools, and filling our depot with hundreds of useless identical decals. We can appreciate a few decals, maybe even more if there was a greater variety. But they are all the same. Let's say we collect 120 decals from buying 2 large packs. What will we do with them? Do we put one on each tank we have in our garage? And why would we do this in the first place? It will only remind us when we play our favorite tanks how foolish we were to empty our pockets on these packs. Next on the list, we will stay on the subject of gates for the moment, as this topic is closely related to the one discussed previously. Here we will open both the Harriers and the Engineer's Gates, using only free starters earned during the event. As we said at the beginning of our honest review, this time we will focus our attention on the free-to-play aspect of the event. Or better said, free to open the gates. Because of this, we will have very few starters for the Engineer's Gate. But don't worry. We actually don't need more. You'll notice that they're enough to give you a good idea of the drop rate, and the chances of getting something nice in return for your starters. On this occasion, we will also take a look at how the reroll system works. For both types of gates. Just to refresh your memory, for Harriers, you need silver to reroll. The engineer's gate can only be re-rolled using gold. In both cases, using the re-roll system will quickly empty your account of silver or gold. Because every time you do that, it will cost you more. Also, we will not re-roll any engineer's gate because we don't see the point in spending our gold on this. If the first drop was rubbish, there's no guarantee that the next one will be any better. And doing that would be kind of against our own rules. That is, for us to participate in this event as any other free-to-play player. Normally, if you play on the free-to-play model, every resource you have is important. Especially gold. And you would like to keep them and use them in perhaps more useful ways. The only re-rolls we will be doing will be at Harrier's Gate. And that's just because we have tons of silver at our disposal and want to see how fair the system is with us. But I guess we can give you a small hint right now, before we start opening gates. This system is absolutely not fair to the player. And that's to put it mildly. We will start with the Harrier's Gate, for the simple reason that we have the most starters for it. So, let us see what we can get our hands on from it. On your marks, get set, go. What a surprise! A garage slot. As if we needed more of these. Now, to reroll this garbage drop for the first time it will cost us 25,000 silver. And we can reroll a maximum of 3 times per gate. Each attempt costing us more silver. Since we have tons of silver available, we will reroll this one of course. Hoping for a better drop. The reroll got us 1 large additional experience personal reserve. I guess that's better, so we'll take it and open another gate. Is it me, or that's exactly the same drop we got earlier? It multiplied, or what happened here? Because I don't really understand how it's possible. But I guess we will take this too. One large first aid kit. Not much, but it's free so I guess we'll take it. What is it with these duplicated drops? The first time we can say it was a coincidence, but twice in a row, it becomes suspicious. We gonna reroll this to see what happens. Thank God. At least it's something different now. 1 large crew experience reserve, which we will claim it. What was I saying earlier about duplicates? This thing is either broken or rigged, seriously. There are so many other things it could drop for us, but no. It seems the system only wants to give us duplicates. So I guess the only thing left to do in this case is to reroll. Well, that was one good reroll right there, I have to admit. And a bit unexpected. In exchange for the 25,000 silver we spent on the reroll, we got 7 days of premium. A welcome change after so many duplicates, I'd say. We will claim this one as this is by far the best drop we got so far. We meet again it seems, Mr. Crew Reserve. Glad to see you again, but not really. Goodbye now and I hope we don't see each other ever again. We could say I guess at this point that personal reserves are the main course here. Can you please, sir, serve me something else? I'm on a diet you know, and I'm not allowed such things. So another reroll is necessary it seems, but now it will cost us 50,000 silver. And the next reroll got us a damn demounting kit, What else could it have been? We got tons of these unused, unfortunately, so this is the perfect opportunity to see what happens on the third reroll. Please keep in mind that this fun costs us no more and no less than 175,000 silver. That's a lot of silver thrown out the window right there. And with that, we ended up right back at the beginning it seems. Do you remember what the first drop was before we re-rolled? Exactly this. One large crew experience reserve. So we spent 175,000 silver just so we can get the same drop. This thing is so much fun, seriously. It's not like gambling at all. I was totally wrong and now I see it. Willing to risk something you value in the hope of getting something of even greater value is addictive, rewarding, and on top of that, you get a nice feeling inside doing it. It's electrifying in a way. Like the first time you stuck your fingers in an outlet and get some current flowing level stuff. I think this is it, must admit it now. I kinda like this a bit. Maybe a bit more actually. But wait just a moment here. Something seems strange to me, but don't know exactly what it is. Damn it, what was it about? I think I remember something important. Yes, that's it. I remember now. Isn't this the main definition of gambling? We think it is. And we are, unfortunately, one step closer to putting the pay to gamble tag on this one. But not just yet. We still have the engineer's gate to open. Until then, we will continue to burn the rest of the starters for Harrier's gate, but at a faster pace. We have already made our point here and there is nothing left to analyze or discuss on this. You have seen with your own eyes what awaits you behind these gates, and how the reroll system works. You can draw your own conclusions from here. So let's finish and close this gate to get to the engineer. And that's about it, I guess. We are finally done with this gate and hope we never see it again. As you probably noticed, the rest of the starters had more or less similar drops, with a few small exceptions. More specifically, we got some emblems and 2D styles. I guess it's okay in the end, we got a few things at least out of this. But make no mistake about one thing. In the end, we came out of it more financially wrinkled than when we entered. Similar to when you walk into a casino, you might say. On the way out, most of the time your wallet is a little lighter. This is the case here as well. Since we already deducted a point at the beginning of our review for the reroll system, there's no point in doing it again here. Although it sounds tempting, we already knew how this system would work from our past experiences with it. This is why we are completely against such systems, because they are never designed to work to the player's advantage. That being said, we can now turn our attention to the engineer's gate. The last gates we have left to open in this review. And these will be few in number, 4 to be exact. Because we could only collect so many starters in a reasonable amount of time, and without investing money in the premium store packs. We mention again that we won't be using the reroll feature here because we want to collect 100 gold from each starter. This is in our opinion what a free-to-play player would normally do. And in any case, you will find that to reroll these gates you need considerable amounts of gold. Because the 100 gold given by each activation does not even cover half of the first reroll. Not to mention the 4th and 5th rerolls which cost even more. Yes, you heard that right. The engineer's gate can be rerolled 5 times in total. And the first 3 attempts cost 250 gold each. Which in our opinion is way too much than it's actually worth for a simple first time reroll. But we'll talk more about that after you see the wonders that lie behind this gate. And I don't think you'll be very impressed this time either, unfortunately. I think you already know what to expect here. But now let's use the 4 starters we have at our disposal and see if we get lucky. It seems that the first gate did not want to drop us a premium tank, or anything more special. But that's okay, we kind of expected that. We received 100,000 silver, which covers some of the losses from the Harrier's gates I suppose. Not that we don't already have enough silver, but they're welcome anyway. We do have the option to reroll of course, but we won't do that. We don't think it's fair to be asked for 250 gold for rerolling when we basically only got 100 from activating the gate. It would have been fine from our point of view if they asked us for example 100, or 150 gold, for the first reroll. And then increase the required amount. So the only thing to do in this case is to claim our silver and open another gate. Alas, the impossible has happened. Here we go again with personal reserves. It's like these reserves are haunting us and they don't want to give us peace at all. Or at least some premium tanks. But no, that would be too nice I suppose. Instead, we received 5 large additional experience reserves. Well, if that's the case, I can tell you one thing about experience. We certainly won't forget this experience anytime soon. That's it, I'm so done here. Or at least my morale is. What is it with the silver and reserves? Seriously. These gates seem capable of nothing but destroying hopes, dreams and wallets. And do they really expect me to reroll this with 250 gold? It is absurd and cruel madness to expect that. Whoever thought of this thing is insane, there can be no other explanation. Are you giving us the same drop twice just hoping we'll reroll? You can't fool us that easily you know. And no one should fall into this miserable trap. Your lust for gold is worse than a vampire starved for a millennium, for the love of God. We will take our silver, and use our last starter to open the final gate of this review. And in a way, we should actually thank you. Because you've unwittingly validated our assumptions again, in relation to how the gates are intended to work. And the fact that the reroll system is nothing more but a way to squeeze out more resources from the players. So let's see what the last gate has in store for us. Just as we expected. A training booklet. They couldn't even give a proper manual, I guess. This somehow reminds us of our previous experience from last year, when we opened tons of engineer gates in search of Astron Rex. For those who watched that review, you may know what I mean. But if you can't remember or simply haven't seen it yet, we'll refresh your memory. Out of 121 gates, We got so many personal reserves and training booklets to fill up a cargo train. We'll leave you a link in the description if you want to check it out. It's worth watching, at least to give you an idea of what can drop from the engineer's gate when the sky is the limit, in terms of starters. But, about these gates, I suppose at last we can draw a final conclusion after opening them with our few starters. In the process making enough re-rolls that we end up in the red zone on resources. Mainly on silver. So, what conclusion can we draw from all this? It's very simple, unfortunately. Both types of gates encourage the player to spend either silver or gold. As a first conclusion. Second, the engineer's gate is an engineering marvel when it comes to its appetite for gold. On this gate you can easily lose hundreds or thousands of gold by re-rolling. And the third, both types of gates exhibited similar behavior in rates and odds for the drops. And as a side note, from what we observed, we can say with confidence that Engineer's Gate, or rather this new iteration of it, is an economic disaster for the player. Much worse than last year, for sure. Because first of all, you have to buy starters to open it, and then reroll what it drops. And you're kind of forced to reroll, because as you've seen, the number of garbage duplicated drops is insane here. Considering all these aspects, unfortunately, this will only lead to one result. This event will receive the same badge as last year from us. Pay to gamble, more precisely. You see, this badge is very important and unique in our honest reviews. Because it comes bundled with a reduction of 2 more points from the final verdict. Sorry, but it's nothing we can do about it, Wargaming. Otherwise, we couldn't be truly honest in our reviews if we didn't do it. It's your own fault for getting this badge and we fully stand by it. As we always do. Nothing more, nothing less. But now let's close this chapter and move on to the last things we have left to analyze. We've already spent a lot of time on this one, and the review got a bit long by now. We wouldn't want to take up too much of your time, after all. The next topic on the list is dedicated to Harriers, maps and last but not least, the engineer. We told you at the beginning of the review about the reduction in the number of Harriers, from 7 to 6. And the introduction of unlimited respawns. We were saying at the time that the reduction in the number of tanks for the Harriers was not necessary, or needed. And neither the introduction of unlimited respawn. Because all these changes managed to achieve in the end was more chaos and negative variables on the Harriers team. Why do we say this? It's actually simple if you think about it. We've been saying since last year that the game in general, but also the events released for it, suffer from poor player coordination, team play and the occasional bots. Not to mention the fact that some players are beginners with a few hundred rounds, or even less. Some of them may be returning to the game only on the occasion of this event, because they found something interesting and new, which revived their appetite to get back into the game. Just on this special occasion. And then off they go back into hibernation mode until some new event is released. As a general rule, these players do not have the necessary experience to play for the team, and unfortunately, because of this many times, the rounds end with a big and quick loss. Like this one. And this one. And the next one. Again. And again. And so on. You got my point, I suppose. The idea is that by reducing the number of tanks for the Harriers team, this phenomenon happens much more frequently. And it was inevitable that it wouldn't happen, after all. It's simple math behind this system, nothing crazy. Some players are better, some less, and some are just bots. When you add up all these variables and decide to reduce the number of players, team play will definitely suffer. And the unlimited respawn system does not rebalance this in any way. Maybe that was the intention, but it fails to do so. On the contrary, it encourages players, especially less experienced ones, to engage in more or less logical actions. Because since you have unlimited respawns, you automatically think it doesn't matter if you die, pointlessly trying to single-handedly attack the engineer tank when it has its shield activated. We've seen this countless times in our games. When it happens, it's kind of both sad and funny. The problem is that this unlimited respawn system comes with some drawbacks. More specifically, with each respawn made, the time required to re-enter the battle increases. To the point where if you've died multiple times, you'll have enough time to make yourself a cup of tea or coffee. And by the time you re-enter the battle, it's very likely already lost. Not to mention the occasional bots or inactive players, which we've encountered quite frequently during our games. Inevitably and sadly. And that goes for both teams actually, because we've seen such cases playing against the engineer too, if you can believe that. Seriously. Like this player who was inactive for the absolutely entire battle. It didn't budge an inch from the spawn point. We could assume that maybe the power went out on him, or he lost internet connectivity. But it wasn't a singular case though. Crap happens and it's out of your control, we get that. It also happens to us and it sucks. But the reality is that besides these unplanned incidents, the game really has a big problem with bots. We meet them frequently in our games, on the side of one team or another. But nothing new here, I suppose. They have always existed and always will exist. Occasionally ruining the game for one of the teams. Returning to the Harriers, however, due to the aforementioned, we will maintain our opinion that this reduction of Harriers from 7 to 6 was not necessary and makes no sense. The only way it could possibly make sense would be if there were major changes to how the whole system works for this event. But there are no such changes here. Just minor ones for the sake of changing something so they can recycle the same thing endlessly. This is the plain truth, nothing less. We will not deduct another point here, because we're going to assume it was a simple childish mistake on Wargaming's part when they decided to make these adjustments. On a positive note, when you get a decent team that knows how to coordinate and knows what to do, the games can actually be interesting and fun. We had such games, so somehow it is also possible in this new configuration of 6 players. It's not like it's unplayable after all. It's just that we lost more games than we would have liked this time, largely due to these changes we discussed. And that's about all we had on our agenda here for the moment with the Harriers. The situation is neither good nor too bad in the end. It's kind of in the middle, maybe a little on the negative side. That's why we decided not to deduct any more points here. But I propose to move on to the next topic because we have nothing more to discuss here. We wish we had more to discuss, but we don't. They didn't want to give us too much homework, I guess. Which is a shame in our opinion. So, the next topic on the menu is maps. Because we need to talk a little here too. For better or for worse. You see, there were 3 maps available to play. More precisely, Murovanka, Siegfried Line, and Steppes. The selection is neither good nor bad, we might say. But what caught our attention about one of them, in particular, is the huge advantage it gives the engineer. Especially the way the generators are positioned that keep your shield active. We are talking about the Steppes map here. What you see on the screen is one of our fights where we won with the engineer countless times on this map. And it usually doesn't take you long to win on this map either, because the placement of the generators makes it almost impossible for the Harriers to win. As can be seen, generators 1 and 2 are positioned so close to each other and in such accessible locations that the engineer tank can easily reach between them. No matter how hard the Harriers try to disable one or even both of them at once. Here of course it also depends on which team you drop when you play for the Harriers side, and it also depends on the skill of the one playing the engineer's tank. But if you're a decent player and realize that the placement of the generators is to your advantage, you don't even need to do anything other than waltz between the 2 points. Basically, the Harriers also deliver plasma to you involuntarily, trying to overload the generators. Because if you reach each generator in time and destroyed the tanker carrying the plasma, that plasma is yours to keep, thus blocking any opportunity for the Harriers to disable the generators so they can damage your tank. And even if they do manage to deal some minor damage while you have the shields up, you'll regenerate back, since you'll be stealing their plasma while they try to disable the generators. Otherwise, the other 2 available maps, Murovanka and Siegfried Line, are better balanced, and we did not encounter such situations as here. Which is great news, and as we would have expected from all the available maps actually. But we can't overlook that whoever thought of placing the generators on the steps so close to each other made a major mistake by not realizing the benefits they give to the engineer. Whether it was an intentional mistake or not, doesn't really matter. The outcome of this decision or mistake mattered though, because it fracked a lot of games for a lot of players. But we find it hard to believe that it could be a simple mistake, however. After all, they had a whole year to work on this event, and on top of that, it's not a newly introduced one. They didn't work on it from scratch. It's exactly the same event as last year. They only had to make some improvements or changes here and there. And they did made some changes to it, we can't say otherwise. But not necessarily where it needed changes. Yes, the maps had to be changed because otherwise, this event would not have made sense. But they could have at least changed the tanks for the Harriers as well. Or at least introduced new abilities for them. Do you know why they didn't do that? Because they were too lazy to make other 3D styles for the new tanks. That's why they didn't. There is no more honest answer than that here. And that could be observed by anyone right from the start of the event. I'm going to explain and show you how. The Harrier-themed 3D style for the Object 140, Batshata Yom 25T, or M48A5 pattern are exactly the same ones from last year. And whoever got them last year already has a nice message waiting for them at the engineer's gate about them. This message to be exact. All 3D styles from the engineer's gate received. Since we got them last year, the event thinks we already own them. Which is fair, we have them. But at the same time, the basic rule here is that each 3D style can only drop once. And since we already have them, they are completely out of the equation at the engineer's gate for us. And anyway, it would have been totally pointless to have the same styles for the same tanks twice. Because we wouldn't have had anything to do with them. You cannot have 2 identical tanks but with different styles applied to them. The game doesn't allow that. So they preferred to recycle the same tanks and styles, basically. Here's an idea, if they don't have enough ideas. They could have kept the tanks but at least changed the styles to new ones. That way we could have 3 different 3D styles that we can apply as we please. Even if these were for the same tanks, it would have diversified things a bit here. It is not the ideal solution, more of a compromise at least. But our opinion is that the most appropriate thing to do in this case was to change the tanks altogether, thus having even more diversity in the game. We would have had 3 new 3D styles for other tanks and things would have definitely been better. We're sure it wouldn't have been that hard to do. And that would have been the right thing to do in this case. At least from our point of view. Anyway, back to the main topic. For maps and the problems we discovered on steps, we will not deduct points from the final verdict. Whether the problems with the generators we discovered were intentional or not, we'll never know, I suppose. We just hope that if this event sees the light of day again, at least they will balance the maps better. What we will deduct a point for though, is the laziness they have shown in developing and improving this event more. It has enormous potential, but is only exploited by Wargaming from a certain point. To get more money out of it. That's what this event is really about. Don't be fooled, dear players and payers. The fun part is long gone, and honestly, we think there's a high probability that this will be the last time we see this event. But not necessarily the last time we will see the monetization techniques applied here. Surely these will come up with other occasions and events down the road. It makes us think only about in what form they will present it to us next time. Probably something similar, but you never know what to expect from them. From this point of view, we can say that they are an endless well of ideas when it comes to monetization. In a way, we can't wait to see the next strategies they will apply here. They managed to make us curious as to what else they can think of related to this aspect. And with that done, we have only one thing here left to discuss. Perhaps the most positive thing we can talk about this event. Fortunately, we also have such exceptions where we can say positive stuff about it. In this case, we are referring to the progression stages. Here things are simple and I think we will be done with them relatively quickly. We have 20 progression stages to go through to get different rewards. Rewards such as starters for Harriers and Engineers Gate, emblems, decals, inscriptions, and some camos, for example. You can also get some days of premium account and 3000 bonds, if you reach stages 18, 19 and 20. Bonds are definitely welcome and you get quite a few if you finish all the stages. These are among the most important rewards from our point of view here, but we have something even more important. Upon completion of the 10th and 17th stages, you get 2 new exclusive female crew members. If you remember, we discussed this at the beginning of our review. The 2 new female crew members are Villanelle Rapier and Emmeline de Jong. They come with 100% trained brother-in-arms as a 0 perk, and enough XP to learn 3 additional skills or perks. Which is always nice from our point of view. Tokens are required to fill the progression meter, and you need 20 tokens to complete each progression stage. These tokens can be earned by completing various special missions playing with the Harrier squad or the engineer. The missions themselves aren't that difficult and progressing through the stages is relatively easy, but you still have to be careful how you organize your playing time. Skipping several missions or starting playing too late will make it hard to catch up and complete all the stages. It doesn't require you to invest a lot of time, but like any other time-limited events, you are somewhat pressed for time to complete all progression stages. If that's your main goal, of course. Unlike other events, however, we can say that here we felt more relaxed and progressed without too many problems. Even investing only some short periods of time on some days. To summarize, it's on the medium easy side in terms of time and what you need to do to finish it. So here I suppose everything seems fine, nothing to particularly complain about, to be honest. Now with this last aspect analyzed and discussed, our honest Waffenträger legacy review is fast approaching its conclusion. Finally and thankfully, to be honest. It's been a long road to get here, and unlike last year we had more to work with here because we approached this review from a free-to-play player's point of view. Which we think we will continue to do in the future because not everything comes down to money. Ultimately, any game or event released for it must first and foremost be fun, engaging and accessible to everyone. No matter how big or small your bank account is. We will definitely invest more money on different occasions in this wonderful game, because they will surely give us the perfect opportunity to test some new, more or less dubious, monetization mechanics. To quickly recap and close the gates on this event, the following points were deducted from the final score. 1 point was deducted from the start for the new tactic of selling something that is then taken away from you. 1 point for the reroll system and its clear goals to squeeze even more money or resources from players. Another point for packs available to buy with money during the event, behind which there is actually a whole system to avoid certain legal limitations to sell their starters for the Engineer's Gate. 2 points because this event has been given the pay to gamble tag from us, following our observations of the drop rates from both available gates. And another point for the laziness they showed when they relaunched this event with almost non-existent changes and improvements. On the contrary, what changes they did actually lead to more chaos and didn't improve the game experience in any way. Thus, this superbly terrible event will receive from us the following final verdict. 4, more precisely. Nothing more, nothing less. And as usual we fully stand by it. It is a more than fair verdict considering the situation in which this event is. And we can say with confidence that the situation here is somewhat miserable. Additionally, this event again receives the pay to gamble tag as a bonus. See what we did here? Not only they can sell starters for the engineer's gate as a bonus. We can apply the same rules as them in this game. So we'll temporarily refer to this tag as a bonus, for better or for worse. Last but not least, we're really curious if this event will ever see the light of day again. Because what we got this year was nothing more than a recycled version of last year's event. With even more aggressive changes on the monetization side. Nothing really changed or improved here. A whole year is probably not enough for them to do this, we kind of understand that. When you only think about how to squeeze more money, you don't have much time to think about what you could do more and better. With that being said, we have finally reached the end of the road and can finally end this review. Stay tuned though and keep an eye on our channel because this is the season we start releasing our honest reviews for this wonderful game. Next on the list being very close and dedicated specifically for the Pumpkin Bash event. But I won't tell you more right now. You'll have to find how it turned out after we publish it. Until next time though, subscribe to the channel, give a like, comment below if you think our verdict is right or not, and last but not least, keep your wallets and bank accounts safe. Don't throw your money down the window on a pair of pixels in a game or event. This is our recommendation for you, as usual. Stay safe and healthy and see you next time. Hopefully with better news.